Welcome in to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, episode 128 on this May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And also, this is a special episode because we're doing, for the first time ever, live from a stadium. And what stadium? Desio Vita Stadium, the stage of the final of the fourth division of the Paulista Championship. Joining me, I'm here in Americana, São Paulo, Brazil, and joining me, of course, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, is Nicholas Hill. Nick, how's it going? Here in Americana, it's final time. It's party time.
Absolutely, man. I first and foremost congratulate everyone down there in Americana at Rio Branco. Obviously, major accomplishment to be promoted, but doing well here in the USA. Of course, this country right now is on fire due to let's just say some hip hop beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar this morning. One of the craziest nights in music history last night. But what? But we have a lot of sports to catch back up on. It's been a little while since we.
Yeah, I apologize. I apologize. Like last week, I apologize. I wasn't my best version. I had dengue. It's kind of like from the same mosquito from the Zika virus. So I had a health issue. And also this week was kind of like a party week. When your team get promoted, you want to hang out a lot, enjoy a lot. But it worked out perfectly on the Saturday morning, the special day for the city Americana, getting to host again another big game final of Rio Branco. So let's dive into, the Brazilian topics. Rio Branco, as we said, promoted to the third division of the state of São Paulo championship. If you heard stuff on the background, there's people testing sound, When you have a big game, there's a lot of things happening on the backstage.
Oh, absolutely. And, obviously for our American audience, promotion relegation is not really a thing we have here in the U.S. So just kind of like said this stuff, kind of talk about what Rio Branco's history has been over the past couple of decades leading up to this year in terms of where they've been in the pecking order of Sao Paulo soccer.
So let me go back to the 90s, when Rio Branco had their peak. Rio Branco promoted to the first division because in Brazil, for the people, I don't know if watching first time or, but so Brazil is a lot of provincial. It's like if the NFL had also the high school football system. You had the state championships and also the national championships. So you had divisions when you play in your state and divisions when you play nationally. So Rio Branco reached the first division in the state of São Paulo in the 1990s. And they stayed there for 17 years, from 1990 to 2007. And during this time, Rio Branco also played in the third division nationally, in the third division of Brasileirão. But unfortunately, we never got to promote to the second division. Unfortunately, our rival, União Barbarense, won the 2004 third division of Brasileirão, of the Brazilian Championship, eliminating Rio Branco. That's something I hope we can win in the future, so we kind of don't get mocked by our rivals. But shout out to Canal do Barbudo. I have to talk about him in a little bit because he is doing something impressive. He's a 16-year-old boy who broadcasts games of Rio Branco here from the stadium and is doing something really cool. But back to some history. So let's just wait the guys to finish the testing, the sound, because a little bit loud. Okay, so
we're gonna just see, and it kind of where I guess before we get right back in, how far are you guys out from kickoff right now?
So we are 4 hours, 4 hours and 8 minutes before kickoff. So let me finish. So then in 2007, Rio Branco got relegated to the second division in the state of São Paulo, in the Paulista. Got promoted again to the first division in 2009, but then got relegated in 2010 to the second division, got relegated to the third division, and then got back to the second division, and then so ACDC as well, the sound testing, and then Rio Branco kind of went to a bad streak, got relegated to the third, and then to the bottom of the Sao Paulo state championship, the fourth division, the last division. They stayed there for 6 years, from 2019 until now 2024.
So basically, for American context, it's like, obviously we know, like, obviously we both follow Tennessee football, and we've had some rough, you know, some rough times. So like, it's like if Tennessee, when he mentions like being in the first division, so like it's being in the SEC. So then they finish at the bottom in the SEC. They go down to the Sun Belt, and then from there they go down to the SoCon. And basically, this is what's happened to Rio Branco, right? And there's huge implications with that in terms of what it means for their revenue, what it means for the facilities, what it means for their roster building. And I'm sure when Gus handles the situation there.
Now it's better. It's better. I told my sound guy to like lower it down a little bit. The game hasn't started yet, but yeah,
Yeah.
Rio Blanco had a lot of ups and downs throughout the years. Last year, you started to follow a little bit closer, and you saw how can Rio Blanco journey can be a roller coaster. Rio Blanco, remember, almost got relegated to the fifth division. The Cayetas game, remember the
Y'all were
Cayetas game?
literally, you were literally a half away from
Yeah,
going
we
down.
remember. At halftime, Rio Branco was being relegated to the fifth division, and then we got to win that game and win the next one, and then we got at least to stay in the fourth division. Unfortunately, last year we didn't got to be promoted, but thank God happened this year when I was hired by Rio Branco for the PR and to the broadcasting as well. So that was something I'm so proud of. Yesterday, there was the official pictures. You know, when you win a tournament, you win a big tournament like the NFL, the college football, and you have that sit down picture, for the poster.
Right. Yes.
And we had that yesterday. And it was so much fun, and it was so historical. It was amazing.
Yeah. Talk about, obviously you guys had to go on the road last week. Talk about where you had to go. What? Because I believe they're called the Roosters or something.
Yeah, the mascot was the Comarca Rooster. It's the 15 de Jaú. They are a very, very traditional team. They had such a cool history. They had a Japanese player. They had several international players. They were in the first division in the state of São Paulo in the 80s. But also, like Rio Branco, they had some problems. They got relegated to the fourth division. And there were so much expectations because, for de Jaú, like 15 of Jaú, it was their 100th anniversary team, the what we call Centenário. So this was one of the biggest games of their history. When you are in the 100th year of your team, you want to have a big accomplishment, and that was their chance. Play at home, they could tie the game and get promoted in their 100 the centenario, what we call the 100-year anniversary.
Yeah, and just talk about what the atmosphere looked like. Because on TV, that was by far the most impressive atmosphere I've seen in one of these games I've watched from Brazil, at least at the fourth division level.
Yeah, I
Both
think.
from their side and honestly from Rio Branco's side too, even though it was a road game. I mean, y'all had a lot of people.
Oh, we had 600 fans traveled to Jaú. In the second half, honestly, even the official broadcaster said it felt like Desovita. It felt like Americana, because it was so many fans shouting, screaming, and, I could hear from my press box, which was kind of far away. But their home fans also showed up as well. It was 8,500 fans. They, of course, showed up, because they were hoping to finally get promoted to the third division because they are stuck in the fourth division for 12 years. Rio Branco stayed in the fourth division for 6 years, and it was an agony. Imagine 15 de Jaú, 12 years, and that was their chance to get promoted. They only needed a tie, but Rio Branco played so much better, dominated the game. 2-0 in the halftime. I feel like it could have been more. In the second half, of course, we kind of got more defense. 15 Jaú came forward, but then in the counterattack, we decided 3-0, and it was such a really big game, and I will never forget that moment. And then
It seems like to me that Joel, especially like late in that first half, they just got really tight because you could tell. Like, I mean, I didn't know all that historical background, so that makes even more sense to me now. you could tell that team was nervous.
Oh yeah, it's how they feel the pressure. They're chokers. They are chokers. They're known to be chokers. They have several home eliminations during that 12-year period in the fourth division. They are chokers. That's why when we eliminated Taquaritinga, and then the next day we knew that we're gonna that Rio Branco's gonna. I found out we're gonna play Kinjo, I was not nervous. I was cool because I knew the kind of fame, the kind of the history of chokers that Kings de Jaú were. So I kind of were confident because last year they were eliminated at home by a team that was already eliminated on the group stage. They had, I feel like, 3, 4 home eliminations in the
Right.
past decade.
And I'll say this: I was definitely wrong about something earlier this year because I was critical of when Rio Branco fired their coach after the Santa Barbarense loss. I couldn't understand it because the previous coach had come in, and I can't recall his name right now. He had come in and had saved Rio Branco from relegation, and had almost like put together a run to get y'all promoted last year. And I was just like, okay, look, I mean, obviously I know that was a bad loss, but still, like, I feel like you should right the ship. But that team seemed so organized. They seemed so relaxed, so calm, so confident. Um, yeah, like, clearly I was proven wrong there. It was the right choice.
But I feel like that Derby loss. I talked to Valmir Israel this week. He's the part of his history, but unfortunately, he was also expelled the game before the Derby, so kind of took a toll on that. The way the Rio Branco lost in the last minute, the fight and everything, the management and the front office felt it was time to change direction, and then Rio Branco had that big win on the game after the Derby loss. That I feel that was a key game for the promotion. Key game. That game gave the team confidence for the rest of the championship.
Yeah, and just to do it on the road too, to not have home advantage, it's super, super impressive. Um, and just kind of talk about what that celebration was like because I
Wow,
mean
wow.
that was nuts because like I didn't completely understand all the tradition because like people were like crawling on their knees across the field. Like I've never seen that before.
Like there's a tradition in soccer when you accomplish something big like a promotion or a title, you go on your knees and go throughout the field, like to pay like a promise or to like hey, hey, if I get promoted to this team, I'll cross the field on my knees. It's something players normally do. Not only in Rio Branco, but in Brazilian soccer. But the best part of the celebration wasn't in Jaú, was in Americana, because I was with the team in the bus, and then when we arrived at the in the entrance of Americana, it was filled with fans. They hugged the players, the coaches, front office, me, and then we went to Rio Branco bus, the official Rio Branco bus, and we went to the whole city like a parade. We did like a parade.
Oh my gosh! I was reading. I read. I think the article that was on either Rio Branco's website or on someone else's, like a
I think
newspaper's
liberal,
website.
probably liberal.
Because I had to put it in ChatGPT and had it translated.
Uh huh.
But hopefully it was an accurate translation. But the mayor was there.
Oh,
Other officials
the
were
mayor traveled to Jaú to watch the game. The mayor was literally on the press box right across of me, right by my side.
Wow, that was just crazy. I mean, it just I guess didn't truly understand how like important Rio Branco is to Americana until seeing the celebrations over the past week. And
It's kind of like Tennessee football. When Tennessee football is in their lows, people kind of tend to not care as much or kind of. But when Tennessee football is their peak, and probably, hopefully, we get to see them going, for example, to the SEC championship or the national championship. Like the city of Knoxville, of course, is going to embrace, and the political people, all sorts of people from Knoxville going to embrace. That's what happened to Rio Branco. When Rio Branco is in this kind of important moment, people of all Rio Branco side tend to embrace and root and go for it. So and a little bit of history. Current Americana mayor was also the president of Rio Branco when Rio Branco was promoted for the first time to the first division in the state of São Paulo championship, Chico Sardelli.
Absolutely.
So he has
Now, I
this
do.
connection with Rio Branco.
Now, I do want to ask you. So now that we're getting up to the third division, and I want to get to the Franca matchup here in a minute. Just kind of talk about how much stiffer is the competition going to be in A3, and what does Rio Branco have to do? Do you feel like the roster as it is now can be competitive in that third division? And what more would they need to perhaps threaten to promote to the second division?
So Rio Branco, before the A3, the third division, they're gonna play a competition called Paulista Cup, which is all the teams in the state of São Paulo, professional teams from A1, A2, A3, and 4 that don't have a national division. They don't play the Serie A, B, C, or D in the Brasileirão. They get to play this tournament where if you win, you either go to the Brazilian Cup or to the fourth division nationally. You can choose if you are the champion. So Rio Branco is going to play this tournament to get to test players, put a lot of homegrown players, players from their academy, try to test players for next year, the A3, because A3 next year there's no limitations of age. You can play like all roster with 25 plus, because this year Rio Branco only could play 5 players on their entire roster, starting and the bench with players above 23 years old. Next year, Rio Branco is going to play in the A3 where there's no limit of age.
So that's the main advantage of getting promoted up to this division. What
Oh
about
yeah,
like
for sure.
salary cap? Is there like a salary cap?
No, no, no. Probably the salary and kind of the kind of average salary is going to be the same. Probably the same. There's like the difference probably is when you get to the A2. A2, the A3 to A3 and A4, it's kind of the same level of the same kind of average salary. When you get to the A2, then you have to get players that probably have a higher salary.
Interesting. So like the sponsorships don't go up or anything really at A3 versus
Probably,
A4.
probably a little bit. Probably like I'll say 15 to 20%. But I'll say
Sure, I
that
mean that's a lot. 15-20% is.
yeah,
I mean, it's not negligible.
yeah.
Um,
But back to what you said about the matchup, the final matchup against Francana. Francana was very bureaucratic. I'll say they play with the rules of the tournament in their hands, what we call. Because when you got to the playoffs, remember there was the rule where the team who was in the regular season in the 1 to 4 get to the advantage of play the decisive game at home, and also to if you tie 2 games or if you lose 1-0, win 1-0, you get advanced, right? They tie 0-0, 0-0 all 4 games of their playoff run.
oh my gosh!
But
I
but
noticed that for because I watched like the last 15 minutes of their last game, and I forget who they were playing.
Brazil, the team that the president was former Barcelona player Edmilson.
Yeah, and obviously, and they had a pretty stacked crowd too.
Oh
I
yeah,
was impressed with
their
both
record.
atmospheres.
Hopefully, Rio Branco is going to beat their record because they set up 9,000 fans. Hopefully, we can be better than them.
Oh, for sure. I mean, so are they like intentionally like parking the bus basically in all
Oh
4
yeah, yeah.
games?
Oh yeah. They basically use a more like a bureaucratic defensive style because they had the advantage of tie the games in advance. They use the rules of the tournament in their advantage.
That's pretty nuts. So I guess to you, like, how does Rio Branco crack? Because offensively, their offense has been phenomenal in this tournament. They've scored what? They scored what, like 7 goals in the last 4 games. I mean, after they scored 3 goals in that first game against Cat, and then they scored 3 goals in their last game on the road. Um, you know, how do they crack the park and the bus there?
I think Rio Branco has to use the same strategy they use against Cats, Taquaritinga, on their first matchup in the quarterfinals. Try to let them go also to offense and try to use counterattacks. I know it's not going to be easy because they have the advantage again of 2 ties, and they're the champions. But I think Rio Branco, remember, Rio Branco also had to overcome this rule when they were in the quarterfinals and semifinals. So Rio Branco used to, overcoming this rule.
Absolutely, and I think obviously Ray Bronco also has the goal. Because I was telling you this the other day because I know you were hanging out with him the other night. Um, that goalkeeper, man, he was under assault during the game on the road from about the 20th minute to like the 85th. I mean, he was like 60 minutes straight, 60 straight minutes of game time. He was on assault and he was nails on a chalkboard. And I
And
want to, he was your MVP, the superstar of the game there.
and and I'm definitely gonna and if you can send him a video, I'll show to him. Definitely, his name is Eder Moreira, and it's so funny because his story in Rio Branco in this tournament is a very redemption story. It's the kind of story American sports fans love because remember, he had that the blemish, you know that play that he caused the goal of Union Barbarense. If you remember he kind of caused a little bit of that loss against Union Barbarense because the ball was in his hand and he lost control. And he told me he never forgot that play because he was like, "I'm gonna use as a fuel to be better and to be important to this team," and he was.
Yeah, man, just a great turnaround because obviously that's brutal to lose the way that you did. But it's like a Vols player causing the loss at Florida, but then coming back around and still getting you
No,
a
is
decent
I'll
point.
give you an example. It's like if Nico, last play of the game at Florida Stadium, he throws an interception and Florida wins. Like the game is tied, Nico throws an interception and Florida wins. And then he comes back and then get the team to the national championship.
Yeah, and let's hope we don't have to take that particular path. But
Let me
it's pretty
I'll,
amazing to see.
let me give a shout out. My president, come here a little bit, just a little bit. Uh, just hello, say hello. Rio Branco president Claudio Bonaldo.
Hello, hello.
Hello, sir. Hello. How are you
He
doing?
he's busy right now. He's cleaning the state. He just want to say hello to our audience.
Absolutely.
Claudio Bonaldo, Rio Branco president, who gave a really emotional press conference yesterday, praising the team and even me, saying I was also part of this, conquest.
I mean,
But
absolutely, because since you've taken over, I mean, it's even from someone who doesn't speak much Portuguese. Like, I mean, I could tell the social media presence has increased significantly.
but I had I'm fortunate to have a really impressive team with Guilherme Santos. When he arrived at our marketing department, he took over and dominated, and he was impressive. He definitely was a guy that nailed nailed it in marketing at Rio Branco. He really is probably one of the best marketing in Brazilian soccer right now. And Christian Guedes with the graphics, funny, clever, and people love it. Hey, Gui, sobe aqui, tô no podcast em inglês, vem. I asked the marketing Guilherme Santos to come here a little bit.
Absolutely, man. It's just absolutely impressive to see. Um, so, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think y'all are going to? I mean, first and foremost, like, yeah, you've been promoted, and that's obviously the main goal. So, how do you kind of reset and like, okay, now we got a championship to win?
Yeah, the team had a 2 day vacation or 2 day rest, 2 day rest where we could enjoy it. But it was a good 2 day rest because the team got together. Like for example, on Monday the team had a barbecue at the stadium. On Tuesday we had like a private event, a party. So the team, even though they were rest, they got together. They got to improve their connection. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, practice again. Refocus on the final.
Absolutely. I'm definitely curious to see. So, he says
Uh,
4 hours from now. So, we're what? It's so 2
the
p.m. my
marketing
time.
guy. This is the marketing guy.
Hello,
The
sir.
It's my English podcast. Two countries, two Americas, all sports. Nicholas Hill here. Nick, say to me now say to Guilherme the what you said about social media and marketing of Rio Branco. I'm gonna put it here.
I can I can tell that social media this year has absolutely skyrocketed in terms of
Hello.
quality and production. Even as someone who doesn't speak much Portuguese. I'm
Thank
super
you.
impressed with what y'all are doing.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Yes, thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh, he has a lot of stuff to do. He's busy, busy, busy. I'm probably gonna be summit in a little bit because it's a busy day. But we had to do this pod.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with that in mind, let's kind of get because I don't know how much time you have, Gus.
No,
Uh,
probably we can do more 30 to 40 minutes. Will be fine for 30 to 40
okay.
minutes. So let's
So
finish up Rio Bronco. So Rio Bronco today, 2 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Brazil time. Final against Francana. You can watch on the Paulista Federation YouTube with image, but also watch me reacting to the game, my broadcast, which is the Rio Bronco broadcast on our Rio Bronco social media pages, and hopefully Rio Bronco can give a good lead in the final. Just some quick Brazilian other sports. Corinthians fire one of their directors who was key to the election of the new president. Corinthians won in the Brazilian Cup, but things in Corinthians are in turmoil politically. Oh, shout out to Breno Presotto. Breno Presotto, Rio Branco soccer director. He is my friend. Tô fazendo um podcast em inglês aqui. But yeah, so Corinthians in the opposite of Rio Branco is not doing good. It's very in crisis. Palmeiras won in last minute of the game in the Brazilian Cup, but fans are not happy with Abel Ferreira. São Paulo won. So yeah, so it was a Brazilian Cup week. So that was Brazilian sports, and hopefully Rio Branco can win today. So let's go from Brazil to United States.
absolutely, and obviously, we're kind of going to have to kind of, I guess, speed run this a little bit. We'll start with some NBA. Obviously, we're kind of nearing the end of the first round here in the National Basketball Association. We're using this bracket. We'll just go down and kind of just go over what happened here. We
Uh,
got the. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say like just real quick from the I say the first round. Like my thoughts is Lakers gave it a hard time to Denver, but everybody knew Denver was gonna advance. The Lakers fired their coach. I think they overreact with this elimination.
Well, I mean, they were clearly the underdogs. The problem
Yeah,
is they don't have much outside of LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they're gonna have to rebuild. 'Cause, I mean, LeBron's at most has 1 or 2 years left. He's still playing at a high level, but I mean, he's 40 now.
yeah.
How much longer can LeBron's body realistically hold up? It just isn't. It just isn't real. The fact he's still playing at the level he is unreal.
But
And people trying to, and I just want to say this: people saying that, oh, this should further proof that LeBron's not the GOAT. I'm like, Michael Jordan wasn't playing at 40.
yeah, he
Like,
was a shell of himself by like the mid 30s in with Washington Wizards. So definitely LeBron's the president. But the Lakers have to make a decision. They either gonna be average to below average with LeBron and AD, or they go trade and try to rebuild this team and maybe let LeBron finish their career at Cleveland.
yeah, well, see, this is the thing because with Bronny entering the league, his son, yeah, I don't think any team should draft Bronny. He wasn't very good in college, but with the name association, you got to feel someone's going to take that chance just for marketing purposes, right?
Oh yeah, basically the team that drafts Bronny, LeBron's gonna play. That's probably what seems to be the case.
Yeah, and I think you give a year or two of that, and then that's it with LeBron.
Yeah.
But the Nuggets are just too good. I'll say this, and this might be a hot take. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray are the greatest guard center combo since Shaq and Kobe, and they
Oh
might
yeah,
be
for
just as
sure.
good, if not better, than Shaq and Kobe. Because I
I
think
don't.
Jokic is a more skilled center than Shaq, and Murray is just as clutch.
The only difference, they're not as marketable as Shaq and Kobe because Jokic is kind of a little quiet, a little shy. But definitely, I agree with you. I think if they win, the comparisons between the Denver and the Lakers of the late '90s, early 2000s definitely going to be even more.
Absolutely. But they're going to have a tough second round, though, here, because they're going to face the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'll be honest, I did not see this coming. Now, I'm not shocked they won this series. I'm shocked they swept Phoenix, though. I mean, talk about the Phoenix Suns just need to blow it up in Southern
Terrible,
Korea.
terrible. The Phoenix Suns is kind of what the Brooklyn Nets did. Both terrible experiments.
Oh my gosh! KD was okay in this series, but they don't have size. They don't have a lot of depth on that team. Um, they're just terrible. Devin Booker. I mean, he had I think one or two good playoff runs, and he has sucked ever since. Um, and then for Minnesota, you got to give them the credit. Because remember, Minnesota, the last time they were in the postseason, they played Memphis 2 years ago, and they got absolutely embarrassed in that series because they constantly were blowing leads left and right. They blew like 3 20-point leads in that series. But they came back this year. Anthony Edwards is a superstar. And you got to give Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert a lot of credit in this series. They really imposed their will and really exposed Phoenix's lack of an inside presence. Now, for for Karl Anthony Towns, this is going to be the great challenge of your career. Can you outduel Nikola Jokic in a 7-game series? That's going to be the question here. I really don't know if they can, because I feel like Anthony Edwards is every bit the superstar to help Minnesota here, but I just don't know if they have enough here. I really think Nuggets in like 6.
Yeah, this matchup reminds me when Sacramento had that deep run into the playoffs. They are a young team. I think they had a really impressive win, but yeah, I definitely the Nuggets in 6.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Now, up here on the top side of the West, first and foremost, Thunder swept the Pelicans, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. It was over when Zion got hurt.
Yeah, when Zion got hurt, the Pelicans were, overtime, like doing the Thunder definitely was a better overall team.
Right, and the Pelicans, I think, didn't play terribly, but they didn't have enough. But the Los Angeles Clippers, kind of like the Phoenix Suns, once again just chokers. The current iteration of Los Angeles Clippers will not win a title. I'm sorry. I mean, James Harden in an elimination game, once again, where have we heard this before? 5 of 16, 0 of 6 from free. Paul George, 6 of 18, 18 points. They were fortunate that Drake and Kendrick Lamar decided to drop nuclear bombs on each other because all of the internet was focused on their rap beef last night. Because otherwise, they would have been clowning Paul George and James Harden last night for their terrible performance.
I mean, Paul George and James Harden are definitely two great basketball players. There are going to be arguments for them to go to the Hall of Fame, but unfortunately, they are not players ready for the playoffs. They are not. Harden, when the first time that James Harden wasn't a player ready to be clutch, to be ready for the playoffs, is when Chris Paul got hurt in that series, the Houston against Golden State. Chris Paul got hurt, and then Harden had to take over, and they blew a 3-2 lead. Since then, Harden, never delivered in the playoffs.
Are we going to see a healthy Kawhi Leonard ever again in the postseason?
No.
He feels like he's just not there. So I don't know what the Clippers do. I feel like they're going to have to blow it up as well, because otherwise they're just going to be mediocre.
Yeah, Los Angeles teams both are in the same dilemma right now.
Oh, for sure. But obviously on the other side for Dallas, Luka and Kyrie just absolutely immaculate, incredible throughout this series. Luka dropped 30 last night. Kyrie dropped 28. And as long as those two continue the ball, Dallas is going to have a chance. But I think the key for Dallas, who else steps up? Can PJ Washington step up? Can Gafford step up? Can Derek Lively the second step up?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But I want to move to the East because we have a guest, and definitely I want to talk about our series in the East.
Who do you have in the Mavs and Thunder?
I think it's going to be in 7, and I have Thunder.
I'm going to actually take the Mavs in 6. I mean, OKC is good, and Side Alexander is obviously a superstar, but I just think Luka and Kyrie are the best players in this series.
Yeah, but I want to go to the Pacers series because I imagine
Oh, Jason, what is up?
Jason Warwick. What a series that was! And are people in Milwaukee still whining?
Oh, you better believe they're still whining. That's all they do.
Yeah, and Jason, you actually got to be in attendance for Game 3 of that Bucks Pacers series. Talk about the atmosphere inside of was it Gainbridge Fieldhouse, right? Is what it's called?
Yeah, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Yeah, so I was in attendance for Game 3, which was probably the only close game of the whole series. Every other game was kind of a blowout. It was exciting. The atmosphere was great. The fans definitely showed out, and I mean, it felt like a playoff game, like a proper playoff game, which is something that the Pacers haven't had in a while and haven't won a series in a decade. So it was great to see, and it was great to get back to the field house and enjoy, some good Pacers basketball for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, and the Indiana definitely proved that they have an offense like capable of making a deep run. Because I think that's been the question with them, right? Like obviously we all know they've had a great offense throughout the season, but were they going to be able to play enough defense? And in this series, they were able to. Now, obviously, some people are going to say, "Well, there was no Giannis Antetokounmpo," but I mean, they still had Damian Lillard throughout the majority of the
I
series.
don't care who they had or who they didn't have. The Pacers went 4-1 against the healthy Bucks during the regular season. The Pacers own Milwaukee. That's it. End of story. I don't want to hear anything about injuries. And pardon me and pardon all Pacers fans for not giving a damn about injuries, considering the last 5 franchise players the Pacers have had have all gotten hurt right before the playoffs at least once. Danny Granger, Paul George, Victor Oladipo, Domas Sabonis, and now Tyrese Halliburton last year. Pardon us for not caring about your injuries, because we are not the fan base to talk about injuries too.
Oh yeah, I mean it's y'all definitely have had a rough go of things, but this finally the first time, as you said, in many years, the Pacers are actually healthy here for the playoffs. And now you guys are going to take on
semi-healthy.
Semi-healthy.
No,
now you guys.
Really costs. No Ben Mathurin really costs the Pacers in at least one of those games against Milwaukee, but Ben Mathurin's out for the season, so we'll see him next year.
Mm-hmm.
And the next matchup, of course, I want to mock my friend Rafael, Rio Branco analyst, because my New York Knicks defeated his Philadelphia 76ers.
No,
And that's great because my Indiana Pacers are New York Knicks.
no, please.
And unfortunately to you, Rafael, the process has officially died for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Hold on. Go ahead, Nick.
Go.
Unfortunately for your Philadelphia 76ers, the process has died officially.
Never. Trust the process. But maybe one coaching staff change again. I don't know.
Well, clearly some personnel changes. I hate to do this to a former Vol for life, but Tobias Harris cannot be your number 3.
No more, please.
Yeah, he did nothing in Game 6 and was very lackluster throughout the entire postseason.
0 points.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, Embiid did what he could, right? It dropped 39-13. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey for most of the series was pretty good. But the Sixers just don't have anything else. And it feels like for a team that's gone through a multi-year process, they should have far better depth than they do.
The process has been going on for a decade, and what do they have to show for it?
Literally nothing.
And Embiid playing hurt, man. Yes. I don't know if maybe can.
Você fala, eu traduzo. Não sei se ele vai poder voltar o ano que vem.
Because he was literally
if like next year Embiid's going to be healthy again or is going to be ready again.
I mean, he was really playing with palsy or something like that. So I mean,
but
I don't blame
Rafael is a big Phillies. He likes the Eagles and the Phillies and the 76ers. Hopefully one day he can come to America.
Saquon Barkley first touch in Brazil.
Yeah, we're gonna be in Brazil. We're gonna be in Corinthians Stadium.
In Brazil, the first touch of ever
Second Barkley
Barkley career.
in Brazil.
Now, I will say this: New York fans were clowning
And we will
Saquon
be
the
there.
other night.
We will be there. We will be there.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Right. Now, I'll say this: New York fans were clowning Saquon the other night, though, because Saquon was rooting for the Sixers, and they're like, "Well, look, Saquon, everything Saquon Barkley touches turns into crap."
It's true. Nick said Saquon Barkley was mocked by Nick fans because he was in New York for the Phillies and for Philadelphia, and he was ridiculed.
Yeah, just unfortunate there for the 76ers. But I would say that series was awesome. I loved every minute because the atmospheres were peak between New York and Philadelphia. But this Knicks Pacers, I mean, this is a classic NBA playoff series. We've had several classics.
It's bound to happen. It was bound to happen.
And obviously, I mean, it can't get any better. You've got New York, which is New York, and then you got Indiana, which, I mean, there's no state in the country that's more crazy about basketball than Indiana. So you've got the most basketball crazed city versus the most basketball crazed state here. Jason, obviously, you're the Pacers fan here. You're gonna have to deal with Jalen Brunson and this roster that has proven they are a pretty solid bunch for New York. How do the Pacers match up with New York?
I think the Pacers match up better with the Knicks than they would have with the Sixers, but I do think that the Knicks have the far superior talent, and that's kind of the caveat of this whole situation is, do the Pacers have enough defense in them to contain Jalen Brunson and to contain Julius Randle and those types of players? And in the front court, I think the answer is no. I think that Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner are going to have a hard time with the front court of the Knicks. But on the other hand, I think Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, these guys in the front court, I think they'll be okay matching up with Jalen Brunson. And Brunson has been hot, and he's playing with a lot of confidence. But so is Tyrese Halliburton. So is Andrew Nembhard. And so I'm really excited to see, if the Pacers have the firepower to be able to make this next step, because this roster is good enough and deep enough to make a true playoff run. But you gotta up the ante when it comes to defense, and I think that Rick Carlisle is going to have that in the forefront of his mind. He's a terrific coach, one of the best to ever do it. Definitely one of the best of this past generation. But, the Pacers on offense, though, the Pacers are strong. They will pass you to death. They're not going to beat you with a superstar. They're not going to beat you with flash. They're going to pass you to death and wear you down and eventually get an open look. That's the Pacers' bread and butter, and it's going to be extremely fun to see whether the Knicks can defend, the Pacers passing, and if the Pacers can contain the star power of New York.
Nick, and just about, I think what is the most impressive about this recent years of the New York Knicks and now this run in the playoffs, they didn't need any star player, because I think Knicks fans always felt that they needed a star player to make to the promise.
Isn't Jalen Brunson a star though? Like
no. What I want to say, what I want to say
But
about
it's not
player.
Carmelo Anthony. It's not.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah, I think Jason gets it. Because, for example, when
It's the same thing
Carmelo,
the Pacers went through in about a decade ago. Paul George was the biggest star, and I mean, to be fair, he became a superstar. But back when the Pacers were good, he was on that level of Brunson. He hadn't taken that next step yet.
no, but I want to say, like, Knicks fans always felt, at least in my opinion, they needed a already established outside star to get to the promised land. When the Knicks tried to get LeBron in 2010, when they got Carmelo in 2013. So and it's good to see now Knicks fans realizing that Knicks can have a deep run without this kind of player. Jalen Brunson, I think it's the opposite. He's kind of like what Paul George was for the Pacers in 2012, 2013.
Yeah, I think the key to me is I think the Pacers need to win one of the first two in MSG, because I mean MSG with their playoff atmospheres is just nuts. So if you can take one in Madison Square Garden, get it back to Indiana, that's going to be, I think, a big key here for the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean that's what they did. Playing against the Bucks, they took one back from Milwaukee and then defended home court. The Pacers took game 2 and then won game 3 in overtime, steamrolled in game 4, got steamrolled in game 5 in Milwaukee, but came back and defended home court, went 3-0. All you got to do if you can defend home court is steal one on the road. And the Pacers are a team that have showed they could do that. And if I'm the Knicks, I'm a little nervous because this Pacers team is dangerous. This Pacers team is better than the 6 seed shows because the Pacers added Pascal Siakam at close to the trade deadline earlier in the year. This team's had a few injuries going on. This team is better than the 6 seed shows, and I'm fascinated to see how they match up with the New York Knicks.
Yeah, and I think you also have to wonder, too, will the Knicks find themselves trying to look ahead to a potential Eastern Conference Finals with Boston? Because obviously the potential New York-Boston thing is looming.
I don't see that. I think Knicks players and front office and coaching staff, they know how hard Indiana is going to give a hard time. They know the Pacers. They're not kidding. They just eliminated Milwaukee Bucks, which 2 years, a couple of years ago, won the NBA championship, have one of the biggest stars in the game. So I think definitely the Knicks are not looking ahead. They know how tough it's going to be to defeat the Indiana Pacers.
I agree 100%. Tom Thibodeau is more familiar with Indiana than just about any coach in the NBA. He spent a great deal of time early in his coaching career as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. He understands what playing basketball against the Indiana Pacers and the fan base of the Indiana Pacers is really like. And Tom Thibodeau's a hell of a coach anyway. He's not going to allow his players to start looking forward because he's a gritty, hard-nosed type of guy that believes that you have to earn everything that you win, earn every game that you win. And I have a really hard time thinking that he would allow anything like that to happen. And if anybody does start playing like they're overlooking the Indiana Pacers, he's got the guts to just put their ass on the bench. Straight up. That's what he would do. That's the type of coach Tom Thibodeau is. He is cutthroat. If you are not all business and not in there to be hard-nosed, gritty, and grind it out if necessary, you're not going to play for him. And so I think that's going to be a tremendously difficult series for the Pacers in a lot of ways because of Tom Thibodeau as well.
All right. What are your picks for this series?
Knicks in 7.
Hicks in 4, baby. Give me Pacers in 6.
I'm going to go Pacers in 7. So we'll see what happens. It's going to come down to the wire in this one.
We're going to have to do, I'll say this. We're going to have to do a podcast reacting to one of the games in the series. We're going to have to. We're going to have to find a way.
Do a live watch along. That would be fun.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Would be a lot of fun.
Let's do it after the game so we can react to what happened to the game.
Oh, the watch-alongs are so much fun, though.
No, I think we should do. Well, it just depends on how quickly I can get home from work. But
we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out
something though. It's going to be fun.
So there is one more first-round game. We have a Game 7 tomorrow in Cleveland between Orlando and Cleveland. The winner will take on Boston. Now, it's kind of, it feels like a diminished Game 7 because I don't see either Orlando or Cleveland winning next round. But, I mean, for both of those clubs, I feel like getting a playoff series win here would be just massive momentum for them moving forward. Who's taking that Game 7? I mean, Donovan Mitchell dropped 50 by himself but got zero help last night in Florida to take out Orlando.
I think this game is more for established because both are young teams try to reestablish themselves in the Eastern Conference. So I feel like whoever wins already accomplished more than they thought. So, but I think Cleveland's gonna win.
Give me Cleveland as well, but I think it'll be close. Donovan Mitchell's the best player on the floor. He's going to win the game.
Honestly, I think Cleveland crumbles. Give me Orlando. I like because Orlando almost took Game 5 in Cleveland, and you can tell they've gained a lot of confidence throughout this series as a young group. I think Orlando takes it, and then they get promptly swept by Boston the next round. But,
yeah, but that's going to be that's going to be everybody's fate playing Boston. It looks like right now.
Right. I don't know though. I think whoever wins Pacers Knicks will give them a hard time in the Eastern Conference Finals. But yeah. So right now my picks are Dallas and Denver.
Guys,
And
can
yeah.
you guys continue the pod? I have to do some stuff at the stadium here. You know, it's final day.
Yeah, we'll keep on going. Yes. So Gustavo will be back with us here soon. But for me, I've
And
got
congratulations on promotion.
absolutely
Want to give a big shout out to Gus and the boys at Rio Branco for getting promoted.
Oh, for sure. And he'll be back with us here momentarily. But we got a lot more to get into here. So I know Jason weren't with us earlier, but in the West, I picked Dallas and Denver over Oklahoma City and Minnesota, and I'm still thinking Denver Boston for the NBA Finals. That was my initial prediction. I'm still sticking with it.
I could see Denver coming out of the West. I think Oklahoma City's got a good chance. I think Denver has the most established team, and so it wouldn't surprise me to see them just go ahead and flex their experience. But give me the Thunder versus Denver, and I think probably Denver goes to the finals in the West.
So yeah, for me though, I feel like Luka and Kyrie are the two best players in the court.
I don't necessarily disagree, but it's hard. It's hard to pick against that Oklahoma City team, no matter how young they are.
Yeah, I mean they are a better overall team, but that's going to be a fascinating series there because I feel like you have superstar versus just an overall team. But in any case, I feel it's going to be a very entertaining second round of the NBA playoffs. Now, I do want to move over to the Stanley Cup, and I don't know if because Gus normally is able to run everything from his computer, but in the Stanley Cup, and admittedly, I don't know if I followed it as closely as the NBA. It's just so hard when they both happen at literally the same time. Now, for me, I'm personally kind of sad about it.
Think about me having to balance the 2013 Pacers and the 2013 Blackhawks at the same time.
Right. Yeah, that must have been just a one crazy run. But I have no more teams left to balance here because Nashville decided to take a giant dump at home in all three of their home playoff games. They might as well have said that they might as well have had Morgan Wallen come in and throw a chair onto the ice because it would have been a better use of Bridgestone Arena's time. Losing in 6. And what's crazy about this series is they literally took 2 of 3 in Vancouver. It's hard to win on the road in the Stanley Cup
especially
playoffs.
in Canada too.
Yeah. So you get one. So you were up by a goal in game 1 against Vancouver. They come back and win that competitive game. You come back, you dominate game 2. So like, all right, now we're coming back to Nashville game 3. Bridgestone is notoriously a hard place to play in the playoffs. You do nothing in game 3, go down 2-1, but then you get to game 4, you have a 3-1 lead, 2 minutes left, and have one of the most unexplainable collapses I've ever seen in a sports game. I mean, forward, you get the goal with the empty net, right? Okay, sometimes that happens. You're now up 3-2. Then Colton Sissons really has an open shot on goal. Misses with like a minute left. Vancouver comes back, scores with 10 seconds, forces it in overtime, and then the Vancouver comes back and takes a 4-3 lead, and now you're down 3-1. I'm like, well, series is pretty much over at this point. But then you go back up to Vancouver, win game 5. I'm like, all right, now they got to come back to Nashville. If you can at least win that, anything can happen in a game 7. But once again, on a Friday night in Nashville, can't do anything. Just literally, they had 2 home games in this stretch where they almost went scoreless at home in game 3, and then literally went scoreless at home last night and lost in the last minute. Just a really maddening playoff series to watch because it felt like Nashville with some tactical changes. And I'll be honest, I'm not a hockey expert, but it felt like with some tactical changes that they could have won that series handily. But they kind of let it crush it. And it feels like they wasted a really hot streak in the last 2 to 3 months, all for literally nothing. So, but I mean, Vancouver, they capitalized on their chances and they earned the win.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend like I watched any of that series, but Nashville being so hot and then just putting up a pathetic defense of home ice, that will lose you a series. If you can't protect your home ice or at least get a split on your home ice, you're going to lose. If you get swept on your home ice, you're done. And that's exactly.
I don't know if I've ever seen a team go 0-3 at home, like in like basketball or hockey. That was awful. So I'll be curious to see how they go forward from that. So we're gonna have an all Canada semifinal here because Vancouver is going to play Edmonton. Now, Edmonton, I think, is one of the teams that had a lot of pressure coming into these playoffs. You know, they're just a franchise with a lot of historic success. They have a lot of really big-time talent, with like Connor Matthews, for example. But they play the Los Angeles Kings, and the Kings are notorious for these deep playoff runs. And, you know, Edmonton took care of them in 5. And that, I think, is super impressive. And now we're going to have Vancouver and Edmonton, 2 of the 3 Canadian teams right now that are left in the postseason. Of course, we all know the narrative about Canadian teams not being able to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So now you're going to have a lot of pressure here between Vancouver and Edmonton. You have, obviously, British Columbia versus, I believe it's Alberta. And so basically a Western Canada rivalry game here, and you have a Vancouver team who's the higher seed in this playoffs. But I think Edmonton obviously has, you know, the best player in Connor Matthews, and I think that's going to be a super interesting series. And I don't know which team has more pressure. I feel like Edmonton probably has more pressure in this series between them and Vancouver.
It's definitely Edmonton, and here's why. Connor McDavid, period. That's it. When you have Connor McDavid, who is widely considered to be the best player of this generation, the best player in hockey for the last 8 or so years, you have to be able to win playoff series with that guy. And they're getting into Toronto levels of cursed at this point.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm curious to see how that series goes. I feel like Edmonton was going to win that series, I think, in like 6. But we'll see if the pressure gets to them. Now, on the other side of the Western Conference, the Avalanche beat the Jets in 5. Of course, they just won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago. But they're awaiting the winner of Game 7 between the Stars and Vegas. And I feel like the Stars were a lot of people's picks to win the Stanley Cup this year. And I feel like the pressure is going to be extremely high on Dallas. And Vegas is a franchise that knows how to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked if Vegas took Game 7 in Dallas.
I think it's a toss-up. I think that Dallas probably has the more complete team. But the problem is, to your point, Las Vegas has the experienced team. And so, with that said, I think there's a great Game 7 on the horizon. And give me Vegas, I think. But
honestly, I'll take Dallas, but as I said, I wouldn't be shocked if that goes either way. Right now, though, I think the winner of Dallas-Vegas takes out Colorado, but that's a 50-50 series. And I think the winner of that plays Edmonton. And I still feel like this could be Edmonton's time, maybe, to go to the Stanley Cup final. Maybe. Certainly as good of a chance as
it certainly would be a long time coming.
Yeah. Now, on the other side, we have a big Game 7 tonight between the Maple Leafs and the Bruins, and it feels like the Maple Leafs have been here so many times. We talked about this in the last podcast between Gus and I. The Maple Leafs have not beaten the Bruins in a playoff series since 1959. They very rarely have won a game. I don't know if they've ever won a Game 7. It feels like they have been cursed to the nth degree against Boston in Game 7s. Kind of like Edmonton with Austin Matthews and all the other high-end talent they have on that team. If this feels like do or die, especially they were down 3-1 in this series. This feels like do or die for Toronto and Boston.
I mean, yeah, definitely for Toronto, given their past struggles, but even taking into consideration last year, Boston had the best record in the history of the NHL regular season and then did nothing and lost in the first round to the 8th-seeded Florida Panthers. This series is going to breathe life back into one of them, and it's going to stick the fork in the other. And I'm not sure either one of them can be revived to any high degree. But I think a series win like this could go a long way into revitalizing one of two teams that has been down bad.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? I'm going to call my shot because I thought Toronto would be dead by now, but they are not. I'm going to take Maple Leafs tonight. It feels like time.
I know better. Give me Boston.
Yeah, maybe I'm wish cashing there. The winner will take on Florida, which obviously for Boston would be huge if they can get another shot at the Panthers. Who took out the Lightning in 5. That was impressive to me. The Panthers showing that they're not a one-year wonder, at least so far. Now, on the other end, the Rangers completed the only sweep of the first round against Washington. I was like, that was really a surprise to anyone. Even I was talking to Dylan Becker, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know how we made the playoffs as a Capitals fan."
It was the power of friendship.
Yeah. And then Carolina took out the Islanders in 5. So it feels like the Hurricanes are going to be a pretty good series, but I do feel like the Rangers are the best team in the East, at least to me.
I think the Rangers should be the favorite to win the Stanley Cup. Now, again, I know better than to call that shot, but I'm much more confident in the New York Rangers bringing a championship to New York than I am with the Knicks.
Oh, for sure. I do have a feeling that the folks at MSG are going to be busy for a while, at least for the next week or so. Okay. So I think in the Eastern Conference, I like the Eastern Conference final to be the Rangers and the Maple Leafs. And that might be a crazy call in that shot, but that would be a crazy Eastern Conference finals with the Rangers winning. So right now, my Stanley Cup final would be Edmonton and the Rangers.
Give me Colorado versus the Rangers, and I think it's the Rangers' time. If I'm taking any team in this playoffs right now, I want the New York Rangers. I'll take them versus the field.
Yeah, I would take Rangers as well. So, yeah, it's going to be crazy to see what happens. I can't wait to see Game 7 tonight of Boston and Toronto. The pressure is going to be all time. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to get to was the NFL draft. We have not actually had a chance to talk about the NFL draft because we haven't had an episode since the NFL draft went down. Obviously, I know we've got a big draft of our own tomorrow, but in terms of actual draft, obviously Caleb Williams went number 1 overall to Chicago, and that was no surprise. We all knew that was coming. Jason, I guess when you look back at the NFL draft, what picks stood out to you?
I think the first one was Joe Alt going number 5 to the Chargers. I was not expecting the Chargers to take an O-lineman, although I do think he was the best player on the board at the time. I think that really screwed over your Tennessee Titans, and I think it really sent a wave through the next 10 or so picks where, they took Joe Alt. And so They are they're one lineman short, but they are one skill player ahead in these next few 10 or so picks. And so with with him going number 5, I think the Giants were probably a little surprised to get Malik Neighbors at 6, and then J.C. Latham at 7 was definitely a backup pick for the Titans. And then Atlanta picking Michael Penix, I mean, it's a head scratcher. I understand, I guess, that if you like the guy and you believe in him, you want him on your team. But all of this leads to number 9, the Chicago Bears, getting Rome Odunze where he shouldn't have been available. The Bears won this draft by everybody else just letting things fall, and it all started with number 5, Joe Alt, going to the Chargers. And I think the Bears are the big winner of the first round of the draft for that reason. But I think they have, they've got Caleb Williams at quarterback, DeAndre Swift at running back, and then Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore. That's a pretty solid wide receiver group. That's a pretty solid offense.
And Cole Kmet, tight end, not bad either.
Cole Kmet at tight ends is a very underrated pick at tight end. Now, with those guys, can Caleb Williams find the right players? Can he make the right reads? Can he make the correct throws? That remains to be seen. But a lot of people seem to think that he can. And if he can, I think that offense has the potential to do really big things in year 1.
Like, if he is anywhere close to C.J. Stroud in Houston, like, what is Chicago seeing? Like, let's say, like, he just absolutely hits like C.J. Stroud. What can Chicago realistically do in the NFC North this year?
I think they're, potentially a double-digit win team if everybody hits. Now, it's a big if. But I still think they're firmly behind at least Detroit in the division. And I think that probably brings them up to the Packers level. And, with that said, they could pull a couple upsets. But if everybody hits, I think they could potentially be a double-digit win team. But
I haven't thought about that. The
win.
Potential, the Jordan Love versus Caleb Williams rivalry that's about to start with Bears-Packers. Those are going to – the Bears-Packers, I feel like, has lost its juice for a very long time. And it should be like one of the most intense, if not the most intense NFL rivalry. It should be like the Michigan-Ohio State of the NFL. And just hopefully we can see it be that again.
Yeah, I'm not sold on it because you need both of those teams to be at their peak at the same time to get that kind of rivalry. The problem is the Detroit Lions are better than both of those teams. So fighting for second place in the division is not going to create the biggest rivalry that the NFL knows. I think it should be, but I don't think it will be just for the fact that the Lions are good right now.
Yeah, but definitely rip Minnesota, though. I think they just became the worst team in the division by far. And it feels like they completely wasted their championship window that they had there for about –
They had a championship window?
Well, I mean, they were close a handful of times, like 2017 especially. But, just never worked out for the Vikings. I guess to backtrack a little bit, I didn't really talk about the Titans pick, as you said. Clearly a backup pick. And I'll say this. Part of me at 7 was like, okay, we lost the prime left tackle guy there. So I personally was pushing for Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers there just because, obviously the Titans need some weapons. But at the end of the day, obviously we needed to bolster the line. The offensive line for the Titans has been just a disaster for the past couple of seasons. And really you can trace it back to
keep it nice, yeah.
And you can really honestly begin to trace back the disaster back to notoriously responsible offensive lineman Isaiah Wilson's pick back a couple of years ago, whatever year that was, like 2018, 2019. I can't remember which year. He didn't even make it through his first season. He was that unreliable, to say the least. But, J.C. Latham, watching his tape, obviously a huge dude. And, have to have faith in Brian Callahan to be able to develop him. And,
He's
Yeah,
6'6" and 350 something pounds. He's a tank of a man, and
absolutely.
it's important to keep your young quarterback upright, because if your young quarterback's getting killed every time he drops back to throw the football, it doesn't matter if you got Marvin Harrison Jr. back there, or doesn't matter if you got Tyreek Hill back there. If you
Right.
can't keep the quarterback upright and keep him from getting killed, none of your offense is going to matter anyway, and that starts with the trenches. So that's why I like this pick, even though it is clearly a backup pick for the Tennessee Titans.
True. And it wasn't like a Doomsday or Brock Bowers is going to solve anything for their Titans, because, I mean, we're obviously in the midst of a massive rebuild right now. It's just there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. So you got to start with the trenches. And I think that was kind of the thinking with the Chargers, too. They're in rebuild mode, and rebuilding at the trenches is a good idea. Now, the Colts, they took Letu with that 15th pick. Kind of what is your read on that pick?
This is the most Chris Ballard type of draft pick that there ever was. And this guy has shown that when he is healthy, he can dominate. He's got more solid game tape than any other edge rusher in this draft. Now, the problem is he had a neck surgery, the same one that Peyton Manning had, done by the same surgeon. I understand not wanting to worry about an injury that he has seemingly come back from. However, it's really irresponsible to always pick these guys just because they fall in the draft. If you wanted to go edge, I would have rather seen Dallas Turner at this pick just because he is a safer pick. Letu might be able to be the guy. He may turn out to be the next J.J. Watt, which he's compared to. Excuse me, but with that said, you also thought the same thing about Kwity Paye, and he's been a disaster because he can't stay healthy.
Right, and like literally, because the Colts were the first team to take a defensive player, and that's really was one of the stories of this draft. The first 14 picks were offensive players, which is the longest we've ever gone in a draft in the modern era without a single defensive player. So you could have chosen any defensive player that you all wanted there.
Right. And I think that is more of the concern. I don't blame Chris Ballard for going edge. I think that that's a good pick. My number one player that I wanted there, though, was Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. I think Terrion Arnold is the best defensive back in this class. He is ahead of Kool-Aid McKinstry. He is ahead of Quinyon Mitchell, the corner from Toledo. He's ahead of the white kid from Iowa. I like Terrion Arnold, and I think he's going to be a stud in the NFL. And he went to the perfect situation with a hard-nosed, defensive-minded coach in Detroit. And so I'm going to look back on that and be upset that we didn't take him, I think. And this pick reminds me a lot of when Ryan Grigson, the former GM of the Colts that everybody dislikes, drafted Bjorn Werner out of Florida State instead of Xavier Rhodes. And Xavier Rhodes turned out to be an all-pro. And this German guy from Florida State played about 2 seasons and was out of the league. That's what I'm worried about here. Not that it's the same situation at all in regards to why the defensive lineman doesn't pan out, because I think Bjorn Werner just had already hit his ceiling, whereas Letu just can't stay healthy. But I think we're going to look back with regret if Terrion Arnold or even Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quinyon Mitchell, whoever, turns out to be a stud corner.
Right, and that was like one of the few weaknesses on Detroit was their secondary. And for them to get it, and the moment when he got selected in Detroit, he got to address the fans on stage. That was an electric moment of the draft. Maybe the most electric moment of the first round.
I mean, he's going to fit in there perfectly, and they already like him, and as they should. I think he's the best corner in the draft, and addressing the biggest need of a team that could have easily made and potentially won the Super Bowl, that's a big, big, big deal.
Oh, absolutely. I guess deeper in the draft, obviously, in terms of other quarterbacks, we saw McCarthy go to Minnesota. Bo Nix went 12th overall to Denver. I'm not sold on either one of those guys working out long term in Minnesota or Denver. I think Denver is going to be rough there for a while because the whole Russell Wilson gamble did not work.
Yeah, no disagreement. The only positive is Sean Payton seemingly handpicked Bo Nix, and whether that's just because he needed a quarterback not named Zach Wilson, or whether he truly believes in the qualities that Bo Nix brings, I also tend to agree it's going to be a long rebuild for the Denver Broncos, and honestly, I'm here for it. After hearing all their fans just try to claim Peyton Manning as theirs and only theirs, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I guess just for the rest of the Colts draft, kind of like what was there any players from the other rounds that you were excited to see? Because I'll say that just on the Titans end, I think honestly, Loki, one of the most interesting picks that we got here is Cedric Gray from the 4th round, linebacker for North Carolina. Really, really solid player. And you're going to, I think, really bolster our linebacker core because we got Devondre Sweat from Texas, the defensive tackle in the 2nd round. Him and Jeffrey Simmons together could be absolutely terrifying in the middle.
Definitely.
And, of course, you got Louisville's guy, Jarvis Brownlee, there in the 5th round. And actually, you got to watch him play.
Yeah, I like Jarvis Brownlee. I think he'll be a solid player for a long time. He doesn't really have the upside, and that's why he dropped to the 5th round. But I think he is somebody that can play in the NFL and probably will stick around for a while in some sort of capacity, which for a 5th rounder, that's what you want. You want somebody with some staying power, and I think that Brownlee is that. And with that said, to answer your question about the Colts draft, first player that comes to mind is Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Texas. I think dropping to 52 really, really, really upset him. And I think that he's going to be on a mission to prove that, all right, I should have gone in the 1st round. I should have been the guy that the Chiefs took or the Bills took or whoever. And I think he's going to be a solid pro. But you know me. I am who I am. My favorite pick in this draft was probably, or my favorite 2 picks in the draft, 79 overall and 117 overall in the 3rd and 4th rounds. Pitt offensive tackle Matt Gonsalves and Wisconsin guard Tanner Bortolini. You know me. I am who I am. Give me all of the O linemen. I think those are probably the most exciting picks if I'm talking from my own excitement. But I do really like Adonai Mitchell. I think he'll be great. But sometimes the sexiest pick is the one that's effective, and those O linemen are going to be effective for the Colts, and the Colts needed to bolster the offensive line just a little bit at least.
Right, because as we know, the Colts haven't always prioritized offensive line in the past, and hopefully now with a new quarterback, they will do that. So
now
it's going to be
Anthony Richardson just needs to learn how to slide.
Oh, for sure. But it's going to be interesting how this draft plays out. It's interesting because I was having this debate with someone the other day about how you can't really draft a class immediately. You got to wait a couple of years to really know how it shakes out. And people are so quick to give draft grades immediately. And we just don't know how it's ever going to play out.
Absolutely. And I think that Chris Ballard has been the king of letting it pan out because he has done supremely well in some drafts, and then other classes have been just complete busts. But it's been the ones that have been complete busts that everybody thought were the good ones. And so sometimes less is more. Sometimes keeping it simple is actually the way to go. And this draft is a keeping it simple type of draft. A lot of work in the trenches, and you got a couple of wide receivers and a corner thrown in there. But half your draft class is linemen. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the last thing I want to ask, because I don't know if we really touched on it much, because after that, Jane Daniels went to 2 to Washington. Drake May went from number 3 to England. Which one between those two do you like better long term? Because personally, I think Jane Daniels has a better situation in Washington right now, and New England is just going to have to rebuild everything.
I mean, you
Uh,
can go ahead and throw
Hey,
Caleb Williams
guys,
too if you want.
I had to interrupt your conversation because I have Rio Branco football director Breno Presoto, my dear friend. He wants to send a message here on our podcast. Fella, hello.
Hello.
Go Tiger.
Hello, my friends. Go Tiger. Victory.
Vamos Tigre.
Vamos Tigre.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
still a very hyped mood down
Yeah,
in
we're
America.
here setting up everything for the final. We're ready.
Moving on up.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah,
to
but
answer your question, Nick, if you want to go ahead and throw Caleb Williams in there, my answer remains the same. It's still going to be Drake May. Drake May is the best quarterback in this draft, in my view, and I think he will have the best career long term. I think Caleb Williams has the highest upside, but he's also I think he is the biggest chance to be a bust. If Caleb Williams, I'll say this, if Patrick Mahomes wasn't Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams would have gone 10, 12, that region. He would not have gone so high. Patrick Mahomes has paved the way for these reckless types of quarterbacks to do well. And with that said, Drake May has good upside. I won't say it's elite upside. He's not Andrew Luck. He's not, a Trevor Lawrence type. But I think he is the best, most solid, bust-proof quarterback that there is. I think he will be a good quarterback in the league for a long time. Even if a guy like Jaden Daniels or a guy like Caleb Williams does end up passing him, I like him the best. He's the safest pick. And I understand sometimes shooting for the moon is better. This class feels like it could have been 2005 all over again, where Alex Smith was the safe pick and he went number 1, and then Aaron Rodgers went 20-something, and he was the shoot for the moon pick. But now GMs are starting to shoot for the moon because they can just give up on a guy and draft another one and get some extra time working with him, working their magic trying to acquire quarterbacks. And
right, and I feel that the Titans are in that spot right now, with Lewis. Because, if he does bust out, then, we're probably going to have to go with someone else in a year or two. And I'll say this, just looking ahead, just really the next year, because obviously people are already starting to do mock drafts in next year's class. The quarterback class does not look great next year. We're debating whether it's Carson Beck's the number 1 overall quarterback or Shedeur Sanders is the number 1 quarterback. Quinn Ewers is the number 1 quarterback. And it's an interesting situation because I think a lot of teams realize, oh crap, we're not going to get your replacement next year, more likely.
Yeah, and somebody can come out of the woodwork and show that they're great. But I think Quinn Ewers is quarterback 1 in next year's class. I think he'll be a good pro quarterback. But there is no depth at the quarterback position. Shedeur Sanders, not going to make it at the next level. And to be honest, I don't even know who else would be in that class. Jalen Milroe. I mean, okay, he's decent, but not great. Shedeur Sanders, not great.
Right. And that's also the next – and I name drop his name on purpose because that's kind of the next thing I wanted to get into. The current situation in Colorado because, oh my gosh, what a tire fire in Boulder because so there was a report that came out earlier this week from The Athletic that basically details all kinds of issues within the Colorado football program. Not really surprising, but basically a lot of former Colorado players felt like they got ran out of the program and that the Sanders are not running things well. And then Shedeur Sanders goes onto social media and basically calls them all liars and says, I've never even heard of this guy. This guy sucks. And then Deion comes on and basically defends his son. This is just crazy.
But it's the least surprising development that you could possibly imagine. This is not surprising at all. The only reason you didn't hear about it before at Jackson State was nobody gave a shit about HBCU football prior to like 2020. I mean, let's be honest.
Right.
Let's be real here. When was the last time anybody cared about HBCU football outside of HBCU alumni before Jackson State was taken over by Deion Sanders? I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, I mean, probably really never. I mean, obviously obviously before civil rights, the talent was obviously really good in HBCU football because that's the only place that black football players could really play at, outside of northern and western schools. But obviously now it's just not there. Because we've had this discussion about how HBCUs still have the funding to really properly have competitive athletic departments. And now, you're seeing, Deion Sanders take advantage of that. And now he's parlaying that. He's taking advantage of a whole athletic department. Honestly, if I were a Colorado fan, a Colorado alum, I would be very scared for what is to come after this year. Because, I mean, Colorado's not good right now. I don't know. I don't think they're going to have a winning record this year. And I just feel like you're going to fall off a cliff talent-wise because you're not recruiting. I mean, Deion Sanders says he doesn't believe in recruiting as a college football coach.
I mean, look, Deion Sanders can try to reinvent the wheel, but you know what happened to the last guy that tried to reinvent the wheel? History didn't remember him. The only thing that Deion Sanders is going to be remembered for outside of his playing career, which his playing career was excellent. He's one of the best athletes to ever walk the earth. Nobody is taking anything away from his athletic career. But in his administrative and coaching career, he's done a whole lot of nothing. He's done a whole lot of talking with it's bark without bite. And he was able to win at JSU because he had D1 talent playing HBCU football. Once you started seeing other D1 talent on the other side, you start losing. And that's because you're not that great of a coach. He is not a coach that you can say, oh, he's going to go out there and out-duel somebody, out-coach somebody. He's relying on his talent, and he's relying on his mouth to acquire the talent in the first place. It's
right. Because there are other coaches that go on social media, like the Lane Kiffins of the world will troll on social media, but like Lane Kiffin actually knows how to coach and runs a football program compared to like a Deion. And as someone said, I don't know if a 4-8 team will ever have this much animosity ever again going into a season. Like every team is going to wake up and try to beat them. And the Big 12 is full of teams like Kansas State and Utah that are quintessential programs that rely on 4th and 5th year guys, and they know their identity. And Colorado is going to get steamrolled by these teams. In fact, I think they get steamrolled week 1. They play North Dakota State on the opening night Thursday. And NDSU may have fallen off just a little bit from their peak. I know South Dakota State has become the number 1 FCS team. But North Dakota State can still win FBS games. And they can certainly beat Colorado if they play well.
I agree. I think North Dakota State is a better program, and they probably have a better team. They don't have more talent, but they have better coaching staff, and they're better prepared.
Oh, yeah. That to me is, and weirdly, that might be the game week 1 I'm most excited for, because that's going to be super
I think that's an unpopular opinion.
Like, opening night, it's definitely the best game on that Thursday night. I mean, because if Colorado comes out and loses to North Dakota State week 1, I mean,
it's over for Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
It's over.
And then he goes to Nebraska week 2 and now Nebraska finally has a quarterback in Dylan Raiola. It's gonna be a long road for the Colorado Buffaloes. Just some other minor things I want to bring up. Shout out to Candace Parker. She announced her retirement this week after 16 years at the NBA. The legend, one of the greatest women's basketball players ever, and really, really great analyst too. She's killing it on Turner Sports, and I'm excited to have her as a voice around basketball for a very long time to come. So shout out to her. Congratulations to a career well lived. Also, WNBA preseason startup, and obviously you're Indiana.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, of course, Caitlin dropped 21 last night, and I'm assuming she didn't really play like that many minutes in the second half. Because it's preseason, right? Like, you know, but I mean, still a pretty good start there for Caitlin. But I can't wait to see what she looks like
She
in the
dropped
regular season.
21 and this girl.
Oh wow, it's gonna be nuts. It's going to be crazy to see what she does, and huge moment there for the WNBA. Other minor things. The baseballs have won 2 straight series now. They beat Mizzou last week. They've beaten Florida this week. They swept Florida yesterday. They had a rain out Thursday, so they had to do a doubleheader yesterday to continue their role. They're number 3 in the country, well on their way to hosting a regional. Kind of just right now, just making sure you're getting the pitching up to snuff before the tournament starts in a few weeks. That's kind of what you're worried about right now if you're Tony V.
Yeah, you have to. The key to postseason success in baseball is getting your team in a rhythm and keeping them on track. The way that the Tennessee Baseballs went to Omaha in 2021 was just that, because you were on a roll, and then you have a lot of adversity against Wright State. You're on the brink, but your kids never lose faith. They trust themselves, and then Drew Gilbert walks it off. And then, on the contrary, in 2022, you see a team that did do that in Notre Dame, and they're a very tough out, play against kind of a disjointed Tennessee team, and that's how you lose. And now, with that said, I think that Tony Vitello is going to have these guys ready to go. All you got to do is just piece together solid performance after solid performance. You don't have to go out and be a hero. Just go out, do what you need to do, play your game, and this team should be well on the way to going back to Omaha this year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also shout out to the softball team as well. They won the SEC regular season championship as well yesterday, and they're getting ready to try to get back to Oklahoma City. Next year's going to be nuts, though, with Oklahoma coming into the SEC because they're the powerhouse, and Texas coming in. SEC softball is about to, and baseball are both about to be just brutal.
Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Tennessee.
Florida, Tennessee.
Florida, too. Yeah. The top. You may have the top 5 teams in the country next year all be from the SEC. That is insanity. Now, of course, you still got UCLA. You've still got, Florida State's really good at softball as well. You're going to have your other teams, but the SEC is loaded in softball. Baseball to a little lesser extent. Texas is a top-end baseball program. I think they'll fit right in. Oklahoma, they're okay at baseball. They're not that great. But it's softball, man. Softball is going to be loaded.
Oh, yeah. It's just going to be nuts. Also, in terms of baseball, we play at Vanderbilt next week. So, obviously, that's always, to me, one of the more exciting series of the year for Tennessee.
You trying to meet up at one of the games?
That would be pretty fun, actually.
Let's talk. All right. I would love to get down there and go to that. That'd be so much fun.
Absolutely. To continue the tradition of Orange taking over Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously a little bit of racing here. First and foremost, we're in May now. It is the month of May for Indy. And since you're here, I don't know what the schedule looks like for IndyCar, but is there any, I guess just, Indy 500 is still several weeks away from this moment, but kind of just any preliminary thoughts right now that you have on how the month of May is going to shake out and what driver should people watch for throughout the month?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Couple things here that I'll cover with IndyCar. First and foremost, there are 2 races, 2 IndyCar races at Indianapolis Motor Speedway this month. You have the GP in 2 weeks, and then you have the 500 in a month. Well, I guess it'd be 3 weeks from tomorrow would be the Indy 500. And then I guess next weekend will be your GP. May moves fast here in Indianapolis. But with that said, the Indy 500 practice begins in 10 days. So that is Tuesday, May 14th. And then they'll have practice all that week. They'll have qualifying, which is the most exciting qualification in all of racing, is Bump Day. If you haven't watched Bump Day before, it's a lot of fun. It's just qualifying, but even your established drivers can get bumped from the field, like Graham Rahal last year. Missed the race entirely on Bump Day. Ended up driving in place of somebody that was hurt during a practice session. And then on Sunday, May 26th, that's when you're going to have the Indy 500. Nick, if you want to come up and go to that too, let me know. We'll see. I need to get you to one of these races. But with that said, I think Alex Palou is the driver to beat in the GP. I think he is, still the most consistent young driver. Scott Dixon's the most consistent, but Palou is just the best. I think he's the best driver talent-wise right now in IndyCar. And then as far as for the big race, I think you have to watch out for Joseph Newgarden again. I think he's going to be really strong, especially coming off of this scandal, the push to pass scandal. I think Colton Herta has been looking very, very strong to start the year. I think Pato O'Ward has been looking very strong to start the year. But one name that I want everybody to look out for is Théo Pourchaire. He is the new driver at Arrow McLaren. He was named the permanent replacement for David Malukas, who was released from the team. I feel so bad for him. He took the ride with Arrow McLaren last year after driving for Dale Coyne, and then he was hurt in some sort of accident, and he hasn't been able to drive. And Théo Pourchaire, who was an F2 driver, has come in, and he's done very well for himself, and now he's just got the permanent seat at McLaren. And so I think he is a name to watch, especially during the Grand Prix next weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, going to be very, very exciting there indeed. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the time that we have. And notice we did not talk about Kentucky Derby because that's not a sport. So in any case, I know you would appreciate that, Jason. But
we'll talk next week about that, and I appreciate you guys holding for me because it's really busy right now. 2 hours and 35 minutes to the final. I have to get going because a lot of things for me to work here behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Good luck to Rio Branco.
Vamos, Rio Branco.
Absolutely. So
Vamos.
we'll just wrap it up short. Two Countries to America's All Sports, episode 128. Y'all have a good one.